Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Supernova Steve Harris. The Street Profits retained their titles. Shayna Baszler retained her title. The Velveteen Dream retained his title. In fact, everyone retained their titles, baby! Unfortunately, Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano didn't retain much HP though. Dear God, what a table bump. And it looks like another top indie star is on their way to WWE after appearing in the NXT crowd. I'm Oli Davis. Press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, and answer our question of the day in the comments down below. Who should Adam Cole face next for the NXT title? Because I'll be replying to people from out of nowhere. Also vote in the poll above my head to give your rating for the show, where you can choose from an extraordinary, an excellent, EC 3 out of 5, but been out of date that one, NX terrible, and takeovers will never get this. While Luke Owen and I review NXT TakeOver Toronto 2019.
The show opened with a video package to hype each match on the card, soundtracked by the latest Slipknot track that Triple H really likes. But oddly, rather than show the video full screen, we saw it from a fan perspective like Slipknot were playing there live. Only they weren't. So we were just watching people watch a video. And if you joined us for our live stream, that means you were watching people watching a video on a screen, and oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. The night's action kicked off with the Street Profits defending their NXT Tag Team Championships against the Undisputed Era of Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. With the Street Profits making their debut on Raw in the last month acting as a Greek chorus, it was heavily speculated that they would be dropping their belts to Fish and O'Reilly, starting the show-long storyline that the Era would be draped in gold. However, that didn't quite go to plan, as Street Profits retained their title in a shock victory following a Montez Ford frog splash. It would be easy to say that Ford was the star of the match. After all, he is dripping in charisma that is Rock levels of awesome. So much like The Rock is Ford, he even attempted to hit the people's elbow and did hit the Rock bottom. The crowd was so into him during his hot tag, but they were also super into him being worked over by the heels and wanted to see him get the next hot tag to Angelo Dawkins. But let's not discredit how good Dawkins is. This tag team with Ford has brought out a whole new side to him we never saw when he was just the curse of greatness guy who did the bowl and spoon thing. He is still that guy, but he's leveled up. And his hot tag in the final portion of this match was absolutely spectacular, hitting two enormous spears on Fish and O'Reilly to allow Ford to hit his even more enormous frog splash. So while this followed the usual tag team formula, the overwhelming talent of all four men in the ring elevated it to greatness. This was a thumbs up opener.
Next up was Candice LaRae versus her former best friend forever, Io Shirai, after Io had just turned heel on her. A storyline that was always meant for Candice, and definitely not for Io's recently called up tag partner Kairi Sane. At least the main roster is making the most of her, pairing her with Asuka. Paige here! Damn you, Kabuki Warriors! This quite obviously switched plan, where Candice was just slotted in a storyline originally meant for Sane, meant this feud has failed to gain momentum, and the crowd were initially disengaged, but thanks to the skill and work rate of both women, they sucked the audience into the action with an excellently told story, character work, and a series of big spots and kickouts. The two played out their blood feud as though Candice really had been Io's tag partner all that time, using stiffness to compensate for a lack of character backstory. Candice even hit a reverse Rana that, for once, didn't just power up her opponent to hit one right back, she actually held it in a pin. The last few minutes told a terrific story of Io slowly snapping as Candice kept kicking out a big move after big move. So Io tried something new, a submission finisher, as Candice passed out in a modified Koji clutch. Matt Riddle then burst through the crowd saying "bro" a lot and called out Killian Dane, who very much isn't a bro, for them to have a slightly too long brawl. But it was all worth it for number one, Riddle hitting a go to sleep on a random security guy, CM Punk return confirmed, or a bro to sleep, as Matt Chapman said on the live chat. And number 2, for Dane to run off the stage with Riddle on his back, sending both men and another random security guy through a table, even though the security guard had a legit 5 whole seconds to move out the way. He was like a comedy henchman in Austin Powers.
We then cut to the crowd to see current Evolve and WWN champion Austin Theory was there to pose and announce he'd joined the NXT brand, later confirming as much on his Twitter. Following Evolve's 10th anniversary show airing on the WWE Network, which was totally coincidence that it was the same night as Fight for the Fallen, you guys. It was pretty clear that Evolve was going to be treated even more as the feeder system to NXT than it was previously, which itself is a feeder system to the main roster WWE. Evolve is the appetizer, if you will, or those little canapes you get at weddings. Maybe Triple H just wanted to create one more step to keep his wrestlers away from the main roster. And speaking of people who probably don't want to be going up to the main roster anytime soon, Velveteen Dream next defended his North American Championship against Roderick Strong and Pete Dunne. Dream is one of those guys whose entrances at TakeOver shows are such a spectacle, it would be impossible to botch that on the main roster. But then, we said the same thing about Finn Balor and Bobby Roode, and well, here we are. With NXT being in Canada and Velveteen Dream being obsessed with wrestling of the past, he came out to the Mounties theme complete with a Mountie marching band, which turned out to be cheap babyface heat for the Toronto Bird Raptors, who won the NBA World Heavyweight Championship in basketball or something. Touchdown! What was interesting about this match is that while all the build to take over Toronto was around the Undisputed Era getting all the gold, in particular Strong going for Dream's title, he was more or less an afterthought in the actual match. A very good afterthought, and he had his moments to shine, but the match was designed to build a new feud between Dream and former United Kingdom champion Pete Dunne. Dream distracted the ref while Dunne hit the bitter end on Strong and got the visual pin, and then stopped the ref from counting the 3 when he finally got past the distraction. Dream then hit the Purple Rainmaker on Dunne to pick up the win. This was another really good match on the card, but perplexing in the sense that it completely ignored all of the storytelling going into the match. Maybe Vince already has some control over NXT ahead of them going to FS1 in October.
Mia Yim got the big entrance next for the co-main event's women's title match, where she came out with her squad she knows so well, she left the last person's high five hanging. Even though the story of this match was good, it never shifted into takeover gear. Yim worked over Shayna's right arm, the same limb she'd been targeting when taking out Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, so Baszler had to use her legs to choke Mia out in a triangle. Sadly, it's another less than stellar takeover match for Shayna. She's a great character, but she's been booked so strong it's difficult to invest in the drama, especially when her challengers are one-and-done opponents like Bianca Belair, Nikki Cross, and now Mia Yim. She lacks that great long-running foe to define her run. Walter and Tyler Bate were then shown in the crowd, separately of course because they're fighting for the NXT UK title later this month.
And the main event was the highly anticipated 2 out of 3 falls match between NXT champion Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, who came out dressed as Canadian icon Wolverine. Earlier in the night on the pre-show, William Regal announced that the final fall of the match would be contested in a cage match of complete death that was surrounded by barbed wire with all sorts of weapons and plunder, but sadly no Mitch the Plant. This was a really smart move, as it was very hard to hide a giant cage above the ring during a live show and keep it secret off Twitter. The first fall was the regular wrestling match selected by Adam Cole, but even though he requested the stipulation, Cole resorted to cheap tactics by bringing in a chair and using it as a distraction to kick Johnny in his Garganos. It wasn't the finish, however, which instead saw Gargano get himself intentionally DQ'd so he can get to his street fight stipulation quicker. And it was a street fight that could also be named Adam Cole Goes Round the Crowd Tour, baby! The two brawled round the arena, with Gargano backdropping Cole through the Spanish announce table, lawn darting him into a chair, and locking the Gargano escape for the tap-out win. The third fall was easily the most fun and chaotic, with weapon shots, more weapon shots, even more weapon shots, and a super duper Canadian destroyer off a ladder. Not to be outdone, Gargano went one better by hitting a Canadian destroyer directly off the top rope, spiking Cole deep into the ground. And just when you think it couldn't get any scarier, the two ended up on a platform at the top of the cage with Gargano holding barbed wire, and saw the two crash through tables on the mat below. It was spectacular and saw Cole get his arm across for the final fall and retain his title. It was a crazy spectacle that went nearly an hour, and further proof that PG isn't what's holding WWE back from putting on matches like this. WWE.com later posted a video after the match which showed a teary Gargano waving goodbye to the NXT audience with William Regal, posting on Twitter that he has no regrets, prompting speculation that he is leaving the black and gold brand for the shining lights of the main roster, where he'll likely be chasing R-Truth for the 24/7 title next week. With the level of talent that NXT has, it's virtually impossible to put on a bad takeover event, and Toronto 2019 was no different. Each match had its own unique flavor, with fully three-dimensional characters, excellent in-ring action, and often inspired finishes that set up future matches. While the Baszler-Yim match couldn't stand up to the rest of the card, this was still a tremendous and near-flawless show. Even when it's not as good as previous takeovers, it's still utterly amazing. NXT TakeOver Toronto was an extraordinary. Oli and I will be back tonight with a live stream of WWE SummerSlam, so make sure you've subscribed and enabled notifications to find out when that will be. And click the videos that have just appeared on screen to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk awesome things in the meantime. I've been Luke Owen, and that were wrestling.